person moves, it affects everyone. And you could perceive that as an enemy, right? Well, I'm comparing that to how we all live together in this world. And if one moves, it affects everyone, and we could perceive each other as the enemy, right? I'm amazed we haven't killed each other with the way we all live together on this earth plane. Well, the book Eye of the Storm helps us cope with it and tells us how to handle it. The Reverend Barry Simmons said, "Nothing exists by itself, but only in relation to something else. The universe is literally a dance of seeming polar opposites, blending, shifting, becoming, transforming in a cosmic sea of potentiality and infinite possibilities. And while the forces of attraction and repulsion push and pull as dance partners, there's an underlying synergy that brings order to everything under heaven." Isn't that beautiful? Describes that cosmic dance of all of us. So what we have here is an energy often of opposites, the yin-yang, those polar opposites doing a dance together, and we have to continuously remind ourselves in this dance of opposite energies that no one is against us. No one is against us. So what do those perceived enemies look like? Well, they could be any person. It could be a situation, a challenge. It could be your own inner chaos from resisting something, from resisting whatever is. It could be a health issue, a work issue, a financial issue. Reverend Simmons reminds us, you know you are in a relationship to an enemy when your first inclination is to be in control of the situation or to be right and make the other person wrong. Anybody been there? You know, none of you here, of course not, we're unity people, right? So let's just review. Some of this is review from last week. The 4 adversarial behaviors that we all get into. I'll be right up there with you all. The first one is resisting or fighting, when that polar energy of opposites comes at us. Or control or be controlled. We all know that one. Or that need to be right. And in order to be right, what do you have to do? Make the other person wrong, right? And then there's the old, my personal favorite, defend and attack because we feel denied, deprived, persecuted, and abused, right? That's one of my favorites from the Course in Miracles. Well, when I first came into Unity, one of the strongest teachings that I kept hearing over and over again was never to have a victim consciousness. I thought, wow. Now, we've all been victimized. Everybody in here. You tell me your story, I'll tell you mine. But there isn't a victim among us. None of us are victims unless we see ourselves as a victim. And then we just get into that cycle of drawing another one to us again and again. So to break out of that, we do never see ourselves in what's known as having a victim consciousness. And I think that's why Jesus reminded us. And I don't know what he was smoking the day he said this. But he said, love your enemies. Bless those that curse you. Be good to do good to them that hate you. And pray for them who despitefully use you and persecute you. I mean, what was he smoking that day? Man, come on. So we have to pull that apart and dissect it. And look a little deeper. What was he talking about here? The first way, love that. Love those who persecute you. Well, the key here is to find the gift or the blessing in the adversary, because it's pointing to a place in you or me where we are not connected to our wholeness and self-worth. Anytime we're getting our buttons pushed, there's a place in us that is not totally whole or have, with self-worth, or we wouldn't be getting our buttons pushed in to begin with. He said if you're connected, you could not be intimidated or threatened if you're connected with knowing who and what you are. Show me your blessing, O holy child of God. Show me your blessing. The Chinese have another way of saying it. They say, embrace the tiger and climb the mountain. Climb the mountain means go to a higher state of consciousness and then embrace the situation, finding the blessing in it and taking action from the promptings of the Holy Spirit, by whatever name you call that presence, rather than your ego's perception that someone or something is the enemy. Now, the second part of Jesus' statement was forgive, and let go of the need to be right. Wow, that's a big one, isn't it? Letting go of the need. Doesn't it feel good to be right? It just feels so good. But he reminds us it is humanly impossible to be right without making someone else wrong. And how do you feel when you've just been made wrong? You feel uncomfortable, you resist it, maybe start defending yourself, fighting back. It just sort of intensifies any adversarial feeling that was there. So again, the Course always reminds us, do you want to be right or do you want to be at peace? And forgiveness does not condone what is done. It never condones what is done. It just simply says, I'm going to let this go. I'm letting it go. I've learned to choose my battles carefully. And when I choose my battles carefully, there's very few worth fighting. Although I do get in there when I think they are, but they're seldom worth it. Now, you all know the Serenity Prayer. Most people know the Serenity Prayer. So I'm going to give you two versions of it this morning. You can say the first one with me if you know the Serenity Prayer. Together, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's a great prayer, one of the most perfect prayers there is. Now, Reverend Simmons rewrote it this way. He said, God grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know, oh, it's me. Is that a good one? Do you want me to repeat that? God grant me the courage to accept the people I can't change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know, oh, it's me. Ooh, that one hurts, doesn't it? Jesus said, unless your righteousness exceeds the scribes and the Pharisees, you'll never enter the kingdom of heaven. Wow, what did he mean by that? Well, the scribes and the Pharisees were very righteous. They sort of puffed out their chests and walked around like, I am right, and you all peons are wrong. That's how they acted. They were very literally, right and wrong by the letter of the law. But in the spiritual world, God works in win-win situations. We're all one. We're all expressions of the divine. How could anybody be wrong? So I like to say, well, my way is right for me, and your way is right for you, and maybe we can find a win-win solution between that, instead of I'm right and you're wrong. I see that. Let's agree to see it differently, and know that there is a place we can meet here somewhere. Jesus on the very cross said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Can you imagine having just been crucified and say, forgive them? Wow. He did not see himself as a victim. He didn't hang on, well, I'm a victim. Somebody just put me on. He never saw himself as a victim. And he knew the only way to resurrect was to forgive, not to condone, but to let it go, so that he could be light enough, free of the burden of judgment and guilt, to resurrect to a higher state. Now, the third part of his statement was, pray for those who persecute you. Wow, pray for those who persecute you. I've noticed that you cannot pray for someone and see them as an enemy. It just doesn't work. As soon as you start to pray for them, you start to love them. The enemy is no longer there. But I did have to learn the lesson. You don't pray to change someone. Remember last week when I told you about one of my first board presidents being such a bully and a really mean person? I decided I was going to pray for her. I was going to pray to change her so she wouldn't be a mean bully anymore. And I went home and I did it right. I lit candles and I did this ritual and I prayed the meanness and the bulliness out of this woman. Oh, the next day I met her, and she was worse than before. Her meanness had increased. I thought she was going to kill me. We can never pray against something or someone or to change someone. Their resistance just increases. Have you ever had someone come up and try to change you? Does not your resistance? And somehow the power of prayer, we can feel that energy coming at us. Wow, did I have to, so we went home, took the candles apart, and we did that whole prayer to change me, so I would know who and what to be in this situation. Prayers are like a boomerang. You know, my son once went to Australia and bought me a boomerang. Isn't that great? And boomerangs, you know, wherever you send them, they come right back at you, and prayer is that way. And that's why we always want to pray to bless someone, because then that energy of love will come back to us in that same and beautiful way. Pray to change yourself. Pray to bless others. And then finally, the conclusion of that whole idea is to take action then from the promptings of the Holy Spirit, rather than your ego's perception that somebody is the enemy here or some situation is wrong somehow and I've got to fix it or fight it or go against it. Center yourself in the awareness of that oneness with the divine and allow the answer, allow the prompting of what to do and say to come forward. And there are peaceful communication techniques, and I know most of you know these already. This is just a review. Most people just want to be heard. You know, I deal with 80 to 100 people sometimes, and I can't possibly, as a minister, please everyone. I learned over the first year of ministry, I was so green. Honey, I'm home. You know, I went to my first church, and wow, I couldn't believe the criticism and the, what could be there. I thought, what is the church, Don't you know I'm the minister? Doesn't mean anything. But I did learn that, people just need to be heard. With more than one person, everybody's going to have a different opinion of what we should do and how to do it and who should do it and when to do it. And maybe my listening, I may or may not change my mind. Sometimes I do if I really hear what's the problem. Sometimes I do need to change. And other times I just need to know you are heard, and most people are fine. Back in the 80s and 90s, we heard all these catchphrases like, I hear what you're saying. And you have to be very sincere when you say that, because it's such a, what do they call it? It's such an old platitude that it can sound insincere. But, tell me more is a good one. Tell me more. I want to understand what you mean. It sounds like you're upset with this. What's that? How is that working for you? And how's it working for me? I know. Is that so? I can really tell you're hurt by this. You don't have to agree, but you do have to listen sincerely. Reverend Simmons gives the best story in his book about this. He's married, of course. He has many past wife stories. But on this particular wife, she was very angry with him one day. And she came up to him, you never take me out anymore. We never go out to eat anymore. And she was so upset. And right away, he got into defense. What do you mean I never take you out? We just went out last Thursday. And then he stopped. And he said, well, tell me more. What do you mean? Come to find out, she loves him. She missed him. She wanted to spend more time with him. She wasn't the enemy to fight. She missed him. And as soon as he realized that, he realized this was coming from love. And so the other technique he talks about is, it's always about what's missing for the other person. What's missing in our relationship, or what's missing in this situation. He said when you react by making the other person wrong or by defending yourself, you make the judgment mean that it's about you when it's really not. It's about what's missing for the other person. It's about what the other person needs or what the relationship needs. Usually it's a cry for love. And once you realize that everything is a cry for love, how can anybody be upset with that? Tell me more. Tell me more. Clarity is power. Once you're clear, then it's so much easier to understand and to know where to go with that. Now, when someone is extremely reacting, have you ever had anybody yelling in your face and, really intense and really upset? It's always about an old wound. Always. You should be able to come up and talk to me about anything. without either one of us getting upset. But if somebody is really, really intense, you know what I compare it to? If I went up to Steve here and said, "Hey, Steve, how are you?" and hit you on the arm, it may be irritating, but you probably wouldn't be too upset. But what if he had a sore? What if he just had a real open wound on, and I went up and said, "Hey, Steve, wow," he might react. He might want to hit me, right? Or at least scream, "Ouch." Most reactions are from old wounds, and so when we stop taking them personally, and once again listen with compassion, letting go of resistance, we can always come to a reasonable solution, not taking it personally. That was the biggest lesson I had to learn, was not to take things personally. You know, how much of this is fact, and how much is opinion, and how much is old wounds. If it's a fact and I need to do something about it, I do something about it. If it's just an opinion, I need to see do I see it that way too, or do I change my opinion, or do I keep my, or if it's just a reaction from an old wound, bless them, it's a cry for love. Now, I have a fun way, because I know you may not remember all this, so, Charlotte always has these fans in the back there. Because with opposing energies, there's always somebody in here too hot and somebody too cold, right? So I want you to get a fan or take a 3x5 card when you get home. And I want you to write something on it. The next time somebody is in your face and they are raging, they are yelling and screaming and raging, I want you to hold this up that says, "It's not about me. It's not about me." There's another side to this fan. When you're the one who's raging and you're the one who's upset, hold up the other side that says, "It's not about them. It's not about them." I can get touched off too. When my issues are up, it's never about them. It's always about me. So it's not about me. It's not about them. All you got left is love, right? All right. Oprah taught me a lot. I love Oprah. I missed her daily shows. I know you can get it on cable, but I don't get that channel. Remember when she went through the thing with the meat industry, where she made some comment on her show about not eating meat because it wasn't good for you, and the meat industry had a cow. No pun intended. And they sued her, and they were slanderizing her and saying what a horrible woman she was. And it hurt her so bad. She didn't mean for that comment to have that kind of reaction. And that's when she first met Dr. Phil. And she went to him for counseling. These people are saying all these horrible things about me. What do I do? And he said to her, "You know who you are. God knows who you are. So what if they're saying those things about you?" And she said she really had to learn to stand up. "Oh, I know who I am. God knows who I am. I can let that go. That shouldn't bother me." That was one of life's biggest lessons for me as well. No matter what anybody is saying or thinking, I know who I am. Not perfect, but I know who I am. God knows who I am. It immediately releases it. We stand in the truth of our being. Be still and know that I am God. How can there be any adversary in that? Let's take that into prayer. Be still and know the truth of our being. That we are truly one with each other. There's only one presence, one power. And we are all a part of it. The yin and the yang of us, the electromagnetic of us, the left and the right, the east and the west, we are one. And we just allow that presence of the divine moving in and through each one to unite us in peace and harmony and in love. And we stand in that inner knowingness and allow the prompting of what to say and do in every moment. And we are blessed in so many ways.